the most.
Peace, Melanated family. How y'all doing? Welcome to another broadcast of Melanated Solutions Media live streaming to you. It's the big Juneteenth special. We got my brother Uwazi Zamani with us. Well, first of all, Kashama Senko for your co-host. We got Uwazi Zamani. How you doing, Uwazi?
I'm great, brother. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. Like I said, it's the big Juneteenth show. Cut the check. Reparations or bust. That's not the name. It's the fight for reparations, but I just felt that in my spirit. Reparations or bust.
Gotta get it out.
I gotta get it out. So Dr. Cleo Monago should be joining us soon. I think he's a busy man, so he'll be with us in probably like the next 10 minutes. In her absence, we have Sister Bliss. Again, I think we informed our viewers on maybe a couple episodes ago that she had a death in the family. And so we ask that you continue to send positive vibes, your prayers, well wishes, whatever it is that you do have for her. And yeah, so we've come to you for our Juneteenth episode, Cut the Check, the fight for reparations, with a deeper look at Brother Marion Barry. So this should be a good show for you. Before we get into the family feedback, I want to encourage you all to we are demanding you all to hit that like button on Facebook, hit that thumbs up button, like my sister Vicky Dillard be saying, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, the thumbs up button. Share this broadcast, share this program, and subscribe to us on YouTube, and check us out on Instagram as well. And without further, look at what the family had to say from the last broadcast. Family feedback. Adam. Those were some interesting comments, actually.
Those really were.
My question really was, you had ordered the film Buck Breaking. Did you receive?
I have not gotten it yet. They keep telling me that it's on back order. So I guess the one that was meant for me ain't here yet. And they keep telling me that the order and the DVD will arrive a little bit late, and I'm very perturbed about that. Okay, there he is.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, y'all. I'm coming to you live.
It was perfect.
Well, I come to you live from Sanford, Florida, so I'm not on my usual connection. Am I still freezing? No, okay. So I'm not on my usual connection. Yeah. Had to make my pilgrimage, my Juneteenth pilgrimage to my birthplace. So make it sound powerful.
my.
So the last broadcast was Political Buck Breaking Part 2. It was also a review of Tariq Nasheed's film Buck Breaking. Me and Dr. Cleo, we actually caught the premiere there in Atlanta, and got a chance to see the film. And I was hoping you had gotten a chance to see it too, but in due time, Brother Uwazi. Somebody, one of the last comments though, they said scholars should do this film. That leaves a vacuum for Tariq. And I very much agree with that comment. Yeah. Any holes that was in that film, any shortcomings, I think is because he is one of the few people out here actually doing the work. You know,
Right.
Lene Latham said, "Hey Kings, hey Lene." All right, so
Yeah.
so did you have anything else to say, Wazi, before we move over to current events?
I did for the last comment. I know we're going to talk about this later on in terms of I appreciate Tariq
Yeah, sure.
Nasheed. Yeah, I appreciate Tariq Nasheed's approach to the film. Sometimes the tendency with scholars doing film is that they tend to talk over the heads of people, and some scholars in these places, do things for the comfort of white people. We're gonna talk about this later on, but I appreciate Tariq Nasheed's candidness for actually doing the work with this film.
Well, make sure you watch the film too. And I'm not trying to
Yes,
talk you out of appreciation because
yes,
I have my appreciation as well for the brother in the film. But yeah, but sure. I think more of us need to be doing this edutainment thing and putting
yes.
out some material, some quality documentaries, films, shows, what have you. But y'all know it's that time where we go and we see what's going on in the world around us with the current events. Can you roll that footage for us, Adam? That's gonna be my new part of my self-care routine, seeing Macron get slapped like that.
Okay. Just watch it. Watch it at least
Yeah,
twice a
whenever I'm
week.
having a long, stressful day, I'm gonna go and just play that clip over and over because it makes me laugh.
Yeah, I think we all felt that through the screen.
Um, in not so lighter news though, there appears to be a ongoing crisis in Haiti, or what is known as Haiti. And yeah, we just want to say keep your thoughts and prayers with Haiti because they are our holy land. I don't care what nobody say. They were the first to resist oppression, and they've been punished for it ever since. They have been tried attempted buck breaking on
On all
the
frontiers.
international level, if there
On
was a
all
thing.
frontiers.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then also there was the attempted murder of a 6-year-old black boy by this
Yes.
animal named Ryan Lewin. And I know you were following this story kind of closely, weren't you, Awazi?
Yeah, specifically because we were coming off of the whole Stop Asian Hate thing and policies being enacted to protect Asians from hate crimes and different things like that. And I know we're going to talk about this later on in the show, but it is that irony that we continue to experience as melanated people in terms of the fact that these are the people who set up shop in our neighborhoods. They set up all of these different things within our neighborhoods, and these are the same people. If we go back and look at Latasha Hollins, or if we go back and look at the women who were beaten with broomsticks when they refused to pay for a service that they did not ask for and that was given to them, and all of those different things. And now we're seeing it more
The
from
reverse.
the reverse of
Not the
it.
reverse,
And
but yeah, I see what you're saying. But I have
yeah,
a
and
question
we're
though,
seeing,
Wazi, because you brought up a
yeah,
good point as far as the whole Asian hate crime. What would have happened if that boy's father had defended his family and he ended up doing something to that animal, Ryan Lewin? Would he then have been charged with an anti-Asian hate crime?
yes,
Can we even defend
mo-
ourselves now?
most definitely, we're right.
The
This
heck?
is a 6-year-old boy,
Yeah,
an
this was a
innocent
six-year-old boy.
6-year-old boy, being a 6-year-old boy
And
and
he
doing
was
what
put out.
6-year-old boys
The
do.
man got out on a $10,000 bond or something like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I believe because after black people and in the new black media, started making a lot of noise about it and saying we can't deal with this. We're not gonna stand for this. Then I believe they decided to raise his bond or something like that. But he's gonna raise it because he comes from a community that has an economic base, which is why
Yep.
we need for Joseph Biden to cut the check.
And I mean, that's really all you can say in terms of how we've seen this. Even like during the murders of George Floyd, there was a video that was circulating where a boy was playing basketball in his driveway, and the police were coming down the street, and he hid behind the car. And we're seeing this more and more. That black boys, young black boys, specifically young black boys, are not allowed the everydayness of being black boys playing in
Yeah.
the streets. And more under this system of white power, and more under this system of anti-blackness, more and more it's imposing on that everydayness that we would love to experience. But in terms of that, it shows that it's even more and more dissonant.
So what y'all gonna do about it?
Right. It looks like Cleo is trying to come on.
No, he's on. I see him.
Hey,
Cleo.
I ain't trying to do nothing.
Okay. Well, you see him.
He here.
Not on my end. Just you see him coming in like I do. Okay. I thought you were seeing something I don't. But so also, Kasim Reed has announced that he's running for mayor of Atlanta. I don't know if you heard about that or not. So that's one thing that's going on. I don't know if that's I'm not gonna say I don't know. That's not necessarily a good thing for Atlanta. To my understanding, Kasim Reed was the one that kicked off the gentrification frenzy, among other things that was not good for Atlanta.
Oh yeah, but I'm sure he's gonna.
He didn't kick it off. He affirmed it. It was already in place.
Probably finished the job.
Yeah, it was already on its way.
Was he?
Yeah, I think Well, I mean, when Keisha Lance Bottoms got in there, he's probably gonna do the same thing she did. The first thing she did was enact policy to put more police in black neighborhoods. So he's probably gonna do the same thing.
Well, Atlanta really. First of all, I have my reasons for being Atlanta based, and you know what I'm saying. But Atlanta has a lot of there's a lot of hype around Atlanta. This whole Wakanda stuff, and Black Mecca and everything. But really, to be honest with you, there's a lot of embarrassment. A lot of things that black people really need to be embarrassed about when it comes to Atlanta, and calling it so-called Black Mecca and Wakanda and all this stuff. The fact that police officer who killed Rashad Brooks is back on the force.
Yep.
The fact that black people in Atlanta came out in droves to vote for Joseph Biden, but they wouldn't come out to help the brother who was prosecuting that race soldier. They wouldn't turn out to keep him in office. Instead, they let some white power puppet get in and weasel in, and next thing you know, charges drop. The race soldiers back on the force. That's a L for Atlanta. And really, when I see black people bragging about black people in Atlanta bragging about how they got Biden elected and how they flipped Georgia, they saved Georgia, y'all need to shut up, honestly, about that.
But why should? But Kashama,
can you hear me? Next subject, unless you had something else you want to say.
Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you, Cleo.
Why shouldn't black folks love Biden? What's up with you?
Why shouldn't they love Biden?
Yeah.
Leo is speaking.
I can tell you don't like him, but I don't know why you don't like him.
Do we have to talk about the crime bill of
Uwazi?
Black people? Yes. I don't like Biden because I think people forget that whatever you do, whenever it's funny how people react in terms of how politicians say these things with no expectations of how these things affect the rest of the world and how these things affect black people directly. Anytime black people center their experiences, it's always up for negotiation. Blackness is always up for negotiation. Biden puts blackness up for negotiation, as with most white people do. Most people see that Biden was Obama's right-hand man. And that's the thing that I honestly think that's why black people voted for Biden. One, the focus was to get Trump out of office. It wasn't about the policies. And then when you put the policies of Republicans and Democrats side by side, it's literally the same thing, just with a different face on it. Or with confetti.
Man, we will have to go on and on about that.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about... Hey,
Wazi, let me ask you something. Are you able to see and hear Dr. Cleo Monago?
Yes, sir. I am.
Oh, okay, because I'm still not, and I don't want us communicating over each other and that happening. So I may need to come out and then rejoin y'all since you all can see and hear each other, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And his connection is stable.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna leave it and then come back.
Okay. Can you hear me, Uwazi?
I can.
Well, the reason I asked the question I asked, and you just got finished talking about how he got there, because Trump was the supposed worst of the
Yeah.
two. But my question was very specific. Why shouldn't Black people like Biden? Not how he got there.
Because I mean, they shouldn't like his because they don't know his legacy.
Okay, well, I think that would be our job to teach him.
Absolutely. I don't think we should disparage Black people for not knowing things, but we're also a fragmented people. So it becomes very, very difficult to explain to people who see these illusions of inclusion and progress, these same illusions that frequent their nation's capital but leave their voices strained whenever things happen. This is the same Atlanta that was in the streets marching. This is the same Atlanta that watched as students, college students, were pulled out of their cars and brutalized by police. Nobody rallied around the young man from Morehouse. Nobody rallied around the young girl from Spelman. Kashama hit the nail on the head when he said that it's very hard for people to come in when you are so fastened to an idea of either whether it's a white savior or Joe Biden is better than this. Joe Biden was with Obama and different things like that. We have to explain to people. But when you are so entrenched and so when you sip the Kamala Harris and Biden Kool-Aid and you like the taste of it, or you think you like the taste of it, or you've been enculturated to like the taste of it, it's very hard to pull people out of it. Even now, as we've had these conversations about compensatory justice and reparations and different things, it's hard to pull people out of that because they're just like, oh, well, I don't want to get this because, I got this.
I tell you what, Awazi, and I'm willing to answer any questions you or anybody have. One thing for sure, we can't pull them out by talking about how effed up they are.
Yeah,
we can only pull them out if it's at all possible to pull them out by giving them some information,
right,
and giving them some information in ways that are considerate of the difficulty it is of being Black in a white supremacist society and living in several generations of implied anti-Blackness that we've been trained to not even face and be good Christians and turn the other cheek, and all the things that you just got finished saying in terms of the different factors that are leading to what I call Black paralysis and us being in the white supremacy trauma trance. I do what I can to get people to critically evaluate what's going on, because people are only doing what's around them, and people are resistant. And sometimes people are resistant because the way the message is given to them, they're bad. And when you're already considered bad by a larger culture,
right,
it's even more difficult to effectively transform people if you keep them bad when you talk about them. I look at Black people as people who are amidst a whole bunch of forces and implications and messages that are leading to what y'all talking about.
absolutely.
But they don't know it. And I think it's our job to decode it for them.
I'm back.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. You got on my favorite cap that I be telling you to give to me. And
yeah,
you won't.
Well, when I leave the planet, I'll will it to you.
Right.
To Kashama, I leave my kente hat.
So
I was saying before you got here,
it sounds like y'all were talking about Biden.
Well, let me tell you. Hold on a moment, Kashama. You said you can see and hear me, right?
Yeah, I can see and hear you.
Okay, cool. No, what I was telling Wazi, and I want to share the same thing with you, is that, well, let me preface it. Wazi was talking about how Black people drinking Kool-Aid and drinking the Kool-Aid of Biden and Obama, who y'all call Kamala. and Black people were caught up in all this stuff, and that it was difficult if people were deep in the Kool-Aid to get them to come out the Kool-Aid. And I was sharing with Owazi that we definitely can't get people to come out the Kool-Aid by re-implying that they're bad and stupid and just effed up. I think the best approach to do is to educate them and to help teach them how to decode by our own modeling what's going on. Because a lot of people don't know what's going on. They only know what they've inherited. And I think you already know yourself, Kashama, from your own history, that a lot of Black people see talking about racism or against white supremacist systems, which is a whole country, as literally sacrilegious and talking against God.
Right.
And now they don't know that in terms of a conscientious analysis, but that's what the subconscious is telling them, that because you've seen Black people who can be witness to or know about some of the horrific things that have happened to us, and will still imply that, well, why people wouldn't do that?
Right.
And I was talking to a grown woman from a city I won't name, so she won't be exposed, who is in a powerful position in law enforcement in a Midwest city, who kept saying during our conversation, "Are you saying this stuff is calculated or on purpose? Because I don't believe that." And instead of looking at her like she was crazy, I said, "Why not?" Instead of making her bad and stupid, I just kicked back and I said, "Why not?"
It is. It's so. I think because in that aspect, that Blackness is always painted as this irresolvable conflict, with not only publicly but within ourselves as well.
Yep.
That those subconscious and conscious reactions to Blackness, or any mode of Blackness, Black independence, Black self-respect, Black self-concept, all of those healthy developments,
Black loyalty.
Black loyalty,
is
Black
one of the biggest
cohesion,
things.
Culture cohesion, all of those different things. When you're explaining it to them, the impetus is to, okay, well, this is going to make me look bad in front of white people. We don't have the cohesion that they have. We don't have the power that they have. We don't have the material circumstances as them. So why should I listen to you? And I'm not asking you to listen to me because I have a degree. I'm not asking you to listen to me. I'm asking you because we're not going to make it if we don't have these things. And I think what you were speaking to specifically is that it is that nuance. And I think that is the nuance that I lack sometimes in terms of I wouldn't say hand holding. I would just say being a bit more patient in terms of that aspect, because I think what we do is we look at the legacies of white people and we see those redeeming qualities being offered. And it's just like, I should be able to offer those redeeming qualities to Black people as well if I am who I say I am.
Right. Well, we have to stop. Like, I forgot my one-liner that I once spouted, but it's something like, getting mad at Black people for being anti-Black is like getting mad at somebody for limping after a car crash.
Right.
And instead of getting mad at Black people for limping at a car crash, we have to patiently, but patience is a word that concerns me because it sounds to me a little bit more involved than what I mean. I'm a strategist.
Yeah.
And I want to be,
that's the word I wanted to use.
Yeah, I want to be effective. So I get beyond my own impulses. Like what that woman said to me that from the Midwest, when she said, I can't believe I never said what she said I was saying, but she was a white accommodationist. So she said,
right,
you're trying to imply that white people are literally plotting against us and literally trying to do things against us. And I just can't believe that. And I stayed calm because I'm a strategist. And I said, well, tell me specifically, if you can, sister, why can't you believe it? Why? And I'm going to tell you right now, in every case, and I've been asking that simple question before y'all was even born, the first reaction is a pause. The first reaction is almost a stutter, because we're an automatic white accommodationist pilot. We're an automatic pilot because we were trained to be products and not people. Right. And instead of looking at that, evaluating that, and unpacking that and repairing that, we've been involved in white Christian-driven adaptation and assimilation, which is like assimilating to a rape.
Yeah. Ooh.
And we're now in what, the 10th generation of assimilating to a rape. So all we know is each other as an N-word and blah, 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 blah. And that dark skin is bad and white people look more like Jesus and God, which is about as true as Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. But we're not conditioned to know that. And people who have been conditioned like that aren't bad people because they were conditioned. They're human beings who inherited by birth dysfunction on a systemic level. So we have to start, instead of piling on or only talking about how effed up we are, we have to contextualize it and decode it so people can see cause and effect, why we think the way we think. I mean, what's her name? Obama. Let me call her Kamala for the sake of conversation.
Well,
I'm sorry,
Cleo.
Kashama.
Well, Dr. Cleo. No, I was gonna say, that what you're saying is very important, and I think it's gonna get across within the gist of the broadcast, because we do have to get through this Juneteenth episode, and we're gonna take a look at one of your. I know he's one of my favorite people. Is he one of your favorite people? He should be. I think he is, Brother Marion Barry. He should be one of your favorite mayors too. I think he's one of the best mayors Black people have ever.
We share
eyes
that.
lit up.
Don't tell me I'm
Your
breaking
eyes
up.
lit up. No. Cleo's eyes lit up.
All right. Well, look. Before we do get.
God, Kashama got some white supremacists working on his internet connection tonight.
Yes, indeed. Overtime.
And y'all, Kashama is the primary guider of our conversation, so this is not cool. Kashama, can you see us in here?
Was that? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting frustrated because this place is supposed to have real good Wi-Fi, but what were you saying about Marion Barry though?
Well, I was saying I agree with you about Marion Barry, and I'm also proud to say, though it's some tragedy involved, that Marion Barry's son was a big quote unquote fan of mine and reached out to me a few years before we didn't know he was going to be dead, but he was somebody who reached out to me and began and pursued an association with me, and I was able to talk to him about his father. But yeah, okay. I was a big fan of his father. Yeah.
Well, the reason we're bringing up Marion Barry, because of course it's Juneteenth, but also it's June, and we're not living in under a rock somewhere. Everywhere you look, there's rainbow flags and all kinds of stuff letting you know that it's Pride Month. And there's a lot, as Wazi was telling me before the broadcast, there's a lot of disdain for Mayor Marion Barry from the LGBTQ community. And I just thought that was ironic, being that he was the first mayor of the first major city to have a gay pride parade. In addition to that, the whole Pride, the name Pride was coined by him first with the program that he had for Black people. But Lene Latham, get out of this chat box, cutting up. Somebody go get your refund for that Wi-Fi, Kashama. Listen, the melanoids are not supposed to attack me. but we got some footage to just kind of educate you our viewers on Brother Marion Barry before we continue the conversation. And Adam, if you can start rolling some of these clips for us while I go get my refund, Lene.
New at 11 now, a vote over jobs led to a racially charged debate started by D.C. Councilman Marion Barry.
Now, the councilman was behind a bill that would help men and women who have been released from prison attain new jobs. But when this measure failed, the fireworks began. Autria Godfrey live outside the Wilson building now to pick up the story from there. Autria, what happened?
Well, Allison and Leon, this all unfolded, as you said, during a vote today on a couple of different bills that would make it easier for those with criminal backgrounds to get employment, housing, etc. Now, Chairman Phil Mendelson's bill is the one that actually ended up being passed, but it was the way that the city council voted on Marion Barry's bill that left him fuming.
Mr. Chairman, how do you explain the fact that Mr. Graham is the only white member of the council supporting this bill.
Just seconds after a vote on a bill to help those with criminal records easily gain employment and housing, the discussion in the city council chambers turned testy, with Marion Barry all but calling half his colleagues racist.
If you don't tell me it's along racial lines, then you must not be able to count, which you can. And that's BS.
As Barry's bill was voted down, tensions rose as the Ward 8 councilman promised to, quote, continue on the warpath against anyone that opposes this bill. Tonight, residents in his own ward are split over the outburst.
When people don't think about what's going on and you have that divide, and then if you look at the divide itself, white, black, okay, then it has that tone.
I don't want to call it racist. Everybody has a different view on it. It's very likely majority of people that are in the system are African American, which is why he took it to heart.
And D.C. resident Shelley Montgomery, whose job it is to help incarcerated women reintegrate into the workforce, agrees, but that race really shouldn't be a part of the discussion.
I think that it is unfortunate that we don't have more, cooperation among all people in D.C. to have these opportunities for people, because it's not a race issue, it's a people issue.
Now, the bill that was passed today does not give these with criminal backgrounds the same legal protections as minorities. Instead, it creates a certificate of good standing program for these different job seekers. Reporting live in Northwest Washington, Autria Godfrey, ABC 7 News.
Thank you, Autria.
So that brother was fierce, as you can see. He was not afraid to call a racist. And really, when you see some of the black people that were chosen by the media to interview, you kind of see how DC, got gentrified, and how a lot of people didn't have the same spirit as Brother Marion Barry, even though there were a lot who did. But do y'all have anything to say about that clip?
I'll let Owazi go first, and I'll respond.
Absolutely. I believe in calling a spade, but I think the pushback was that nobody was expecting him to do that, because I think when black people speak specifically to white people in that manner, they think it's going to be a reflection of them. So I know it's hard for people to kind of ingest that and say, no, it is about race. So what was baffling about the sister's comment in the interview was that she was saying, well, most black people are in the system, and which is true, which is a proven fact, that black people are five times more likely to be in jail. And for her to say that it's not a race issue, it's not. I know it's not an accident.
Right? It's because they're black.
I know for sure it's not an accident. And for her to say one thing and then say another and say it's not a race issue, but then saying that most black people are in jail, that within itself is telling, and that within itself it shows the imposition of white thought and white enculturation.
Yeah, that's why I was shaking my head. I was shaking my head because white folks are the ones who chose what got on the news, and no telling what kind of other commentary that they heard and
Right.
other so-called eloquent, clear perspectives from black people. They didn't choose that. They chose this deep, traumatized, entranced black person who talked like a schizophrenic. And I don't say that to be dismissive or mean. I'm just saying that it's schizophrenic to hear voices or to have more than one personality. And she said, and the first thing that they played, and this is how the white media works, and this is what I mean by what we have to tell our people and teach them how to decode, is first they showed Marion Barry talking about the proportional facts about who voted against his bill, which was 99.9% white folks, and then that the bill would be supportive of a town back then that was predominantly black, where disproportionately people incarcerated are black, which is who we're going to benefit from this. And so he couched it for what it was, as an attack against black people. And then they go find out of the few million people that live in DC, a sister who starts off saying, I don't want to call it racist, but that's schizophrenia, and that's white accommodation is schizophrenia. Let's be clear, that I don't want to call it racist is not for black people.
Right.
Let's let white people know, I'm not going to attack you. I'm a good one. And then here comes Shelley Montgomery, the white woman who sitting there, blonde hair, looking like a damsel in distress, who underscores the lie that race has nothing to do with any of this. That's not true.
People problem.
So black people who are not trained to be critical thinkers, which is most of us who are trying to get to white Jesus, watch this and become saturated with confusion. And then we cannot pile on them a whole bunch of criticism of them. We have to embrace them and stay calm, strategically engaging, and decode this stuff for black people. That's an approach that we need to consider. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I love me some Marion Barry.
Don't be afraid.
And I just want to be
also,
clear.
don't be afraid. My bad. Say that again.
I just want to be clear, Kashamba, that I just want to read it. I was a big fan of Marion Barry. Marion Barry was about his people. He was about his community. He was the first mayor in this country to step up as the mayor in African clothing. He was about his people, and he helped to raise the bar of the city of Washington, D.C. while he was mayor. And despite all of the white supremacist destruction of his image, they voted him back into office. And that's a powerful thing to remember.
It really
Chocolate
is.
City, which is now more like Cafe Au Lait.
So we're going to show footage of his funeral. I'm sorry.
No, you.
When
you
I see y'all breaking up, I'm thinking that I'm breaking up as well. And I'm usually right about that.
You're right again. You're right again, Kashama. So let's get that footage going.
Everyone has a story about Marion Barry. They are bringing his body across town from the city council building here.
Here's a good story. I was in Las Vegas. Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin had got a fight. I'm walking 8 in the morning down on the strip. I see Marion Barry, and I'm like, hey, Marion Barry, D.C. mayor. He said, hey, don't nobody up here know I'm mayor. You blowing my cover.
This is Ward 8 in Southeast Washington. This is the part of Washington that Barry represented in the city council. This is his political base. And this is part of the city that tourists never see when they come to Washington. They're letting the Blue Marching Band march in the funeral procession. And why do you guys like Marion Barry?
Because he supported everybody.
It feels much less like a state funeral and more like a block party. Can you talk about what he means to the city?
Just like what Michael Jordan meant to basketball.
Well, what kills me about that is that why aren't they just send a brother reporter? You know, somebody with cultural resonance down there to do the story instead of Biff.
They couldn't do that.
Sending Biff down there.
That video had to be cut quite short because that white guy was slick and he quickly went into the brief scandal that for the marriage.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But we pay tribute to him because we understand that, in June, it's supposed to be Pride Month, but Pride was a groundbreaking program that Marion Barry created for Black people. Even before, I think this was when he was mayor. Yeah, and during his term as mayor. Groundbreaking, called Washington Pride. And in addition to that, he didn't just support Black people. He also had nothing against the LGBTQ community and made it clear that that he was, hey, you know what I'm saying, as long as my people get what they're supposed to get, we ain't gonna oppress nobody, which is quite contrary to the narrative that we often see during so-called Pride Month about Black people and about pro-Black entities and institutions and what have you. Speaking of, this was also a current event. There were protests in DC against Nelly's Sports Bar. Just I believe this week, it was the LGBTQ sports bar where the bar staff and security attacked and dragged a Black woman by her hair down a flight of stairs. An innocent bystander, mind you. Beat her up real bad. And kudos to the Black people that jumped in that fight too and started throwing blows, because you can find the video. Kudos to those Black men who were throwing fists at those security guards.
And I wanted to say something about that as well. I wanted to say something about that as well, because a lot of Black queer identifying LGBTQIA pundits, or not pundits, proponents were trying to dichotomize that, oh, these were Black gay men who stepped in and defended this Black woman, and tried to dichotomize it as if Black men don't stand up for Black. Right, exactly. And this story was kind of this long thread that I had witnessed on Twitter, and just to make sure that Black people defending Black people is where that's what we should focus on. So it doesn't matter if they were gay, straight, gender nuanced, or gender sexuality non-conforming, same gender loving. It shouldn't matter about that. And so before that narrative steeps in there, I want everybody to really get that it didn't matter.
And I think people should get that people make it matter because it's divisive and dividing. And it keeps Black people from coming together under one accord, which is what a lot of these traps in consciousness and these adaptations that we go through result in. Us not being loyal to our own issue and our own people. Just today, well, I'll dominate later. I don't want to dominate the conversation. Y'all got something y'all want to talk about. But
honestly, we're not really pressed, but we do have some videos. But I just wanted to point that out though. In Pride Month, at an LGBTQ sports bar, you're still experiencing anti-Black racism, and we just need to be able to put things into context. But it is Juneteenth tomorrow. Hey, y'all don't have to get excited. I'm excited. I'm about to get my party on tomorrow. I'm about to eat some good food, listen to some good music, and drum, and act like we free for a day.
Right, but I think people need to understand that you was going to do that before white folks said you get to have it on a national level, right?
We 5 years strong in my community. We started it from the bottom. We started from scratch with about 10 to 12 people attending, and now it is a 5-year event with the city coming, people from out of town, and everything. So no, we didn't wait on Joseph Jim Crow decrepit Biden to sign some law. Don't make me go in on Crypt Keeper. Go ahead, Cleo.
I have to say that because Juneteenth is in the media right now, and a lot of what I call the white accommodationist Black people who are selected by white people to be Black spokespersons, who rarely even be seen caught dead in their personal life with a Black person, are now Mr. and Mrs. Juneteenth.
Beat me to it.
And so now, when you talk about Juneteenth, Kashama, it might be if not for you doing an editorial, it might be associated with you excited because what Biden did. And what I want to mention real quickly is that while y'all got Juneteenth, you don't have critical race theories of being allowed in schools. Authentic versions of U.S. history and world history are not being allowed in schools. And reparations is not passing, but you get to have Juneteenth, which Black people were already doing. And like I said in one of my commentaries, Japanese people who were interned in this country did get reparations, and they're not jumping up and down acting for a national holiday because they have cultural cohesion, economic power, and they're self-contained, and they're taking care of business for their people, and they're not concerned about those other things. But some of us are
celebrating. Asian people and many other groups, they be celebrating all kind of holidays in their own homes and families and communities. They don't give a damn. Well, excuse me. They don't care who signs what and tell them they can, But I mean, I'm glad you said that, because if anybody thought that I was happy about Biden signing Juneteenth and thought that's why I was celebrating, you need to hit that subscribe button right now so you can watch me on social media more often and understand that we don't play around here. Somebody in the chat said cut the check. Yeah. That's right. Yes, well, my B1 people that cut the check, put the hashtag in the comment section, please. So speaking of reparations, y'all know Biden was over there in Tulsa.
Yep.
And he didn't say a word about reparations. Did y'all actually catch any of that footage?
I did not catch any of the footage. However, the story showed that he was listening and conversing with some of the survivors and talking about how he empathized and talked about reparational commissions and different things and programmatic efforts, but not actual reparations. So again, pacifying and offering Juneteenth as one of those symbolic concessions, and I'm surprised, you know, we didn't have a repeat of a congressional hearing in Kente cloth this year before that happened.
So you remember the last hearing though, right? And
yes, I do.
circus that it was.
Yes. And I know what happened with this one.
So basically, he's just talking about doing another one though. When they keep talking about commissions and studies, they're just playing with black people. Until when we get serious and start talking about cut the check and really start holding our vote. Cartier said B1 cut the check. Lene Latham said B1 cut the check. I mean, yeah, we got to really start pushing that hashtag on every political statement we make, because I mean, everything else is just whatever, is lip service. So so let's go back to that hearing too, because I don't want people to ever forget the type of clowns, and I gotta say that the type of clowns and clownish behavior that they had going on at that hearing. One was Coleman Hughes. Y'all remember him?
Yep.
Who he actually didn't even identify as black up until about maybe a year or so before that hearing. But Adam, can you roll the clip of Coleman Hughes and some of the dribble he was giving out at that hearing?
The nation. If we were to pay reparations today, we would only divide the country further, making it harder to build the political coalitions required to solve the problems facing black people today. We would insult many black Americans by putting a price on the suffering of their ancestors. And we would turn the relationship between black Americans and white Americans from a coalition into a transaction, from a union between citizens into a lawsuit between plaintiffs and defendants. What we should do is pay reparations to black Americans who actually grew up under Jim Crow and were directly harmed by second-class citizenship, people like my grandparents. But paying reparations to all descendants of slaves is a mistake. Take me, for example. I was born 3 decades after the end of Jim Crow into a privileged household in the suburbs. I attend an Ivy League school. Yet I'm also descended from slaves who worked on Thomas Jefferson's Monticello plantation. So reparations for slavery would allocate federal resources to me, but not to an American with the wrong ancestry, even if that person is living paycheck to paycheck and working multiple jobs to support a family. You might call that justice. I call it justice for the dead at the price of justice for the living. I understand that reparations are about what people are owed, regardless of how well they're doing. I understand that. But the people who are owed for slavery are no longer here, and we're not entitled to collect on their debts. Reparations, by definition, are only given to victims. So the moment you give me reparations, you've made me into a victim without my consent.
That went too long, y'all.
Yeah. So, I mean, the hearing itself went too long, but that went a little too long as well. But this is the thing. Without even trying to analyze what he said, we really got to start asking who sent these people and who are they really? Why are they sitting here? Because he's like 23 years old, you know, didn't even identify as black up until a year or so. Took the Lopez.
No, let's be clear. He identified as not black.
Yeah,
that was his identity. Black. I'm not black.
That's what he said.
Right. But then he became black in time to cash in on anti-black people being propped up and paid by white people to put out nonsense. Right. But he also was a musician or a so-called musician or rapper. Y'all might be familiar with some of his footage. Adam, can you roll some of his prior work? That's enough. That's enough of that too. And shout out to Tariq Nasheed for dropping that receipt way back in the day. They tried to scrub it from the internet, but the fact that we still know it exists is a reason because Tariq Nasheed dropped those receipts way back when the hearing first happened. But you see, this is the kind of mess they throw.
I just wonder at the risk of sounding messy, and I don't mean to, but I wonder, did his white lover write the whole speech that he did at the reparations meeting or part of it?
What did I tell you? Listen,
that's what I want to know.
Uwazi said the same thing.
He also,
Uwazi said the white girl behind him was his girlfriend, and I was like,
be surprised.
And he was.
Oh well, okay.
I don't know.
Only white person.
Uwazi assumes he has a girlfriend. I don't have that assumption, but he did admit where he was brainwashed at. You know, his own neighborhood and where he went to college.
Mm-hmm.
So at least he shared the context of his insanity. However, if that brother was in front of me, I wouldn't call him insane. I would be much more strategic and sensitive with my choice of words because he is a victim of circumstance. And and we need to do our best to stop. We have to stop deflecting. We have to start deflecting trauma, which you've heard me talk about before, Kashama, and not inducing new trauma. That don't help. People, I've done enough work in my own life to see people transform who are just as messed up as, just like that guy.
Well, listen, I believe me, and I'm with you. I'm with you, Cleo. Absolutely. You know, I mean, but this brother, he needs to be in your office. You know what I'm saying? Laying on a couch or a beanbag or something, talking to you
with
about
his clothes
life.
on.
He don't
his clothes on.
Well, with his clothes on, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, not
on public
not them dirty drawers he was wearing on the subway,
and not on public transportation like that. Putting your bare body on public transportation.
Hey, if he had I wish he was in Baltimore with that jump, man. They would be like, "Yo, you get your." But anyway, that brother needs to be on a therapist's couch and not debating reparations. Point blank. Yeah. We can be a lot more compassionate to you when you come to us, you know what I'm saying, when you're laying on that couch and we're talking about, you know, why you feel the way you do about black people and blackness. You need to get up to stop letting white people use you. And that's hard, that's easier said than done to somebody who has this thought process.
But the other important part of the narrative, Kashama, is who white people choose to be their spokespersons.
That's the big part of the narrative, I think.
How United States has become a pool of options in terms of traumatized, unresolved black people or confused black people for them to pluck from obscurity and put them in front of Congress.
Right.
And it's not difficult to find anti-black people in an anti-black society.
Especially
so our job is
give them some notoriety.
Our job is to do what we can to reverse that mindset strategically, because you and I, all of us on this show right now have run into industrial strength anti-black black people who go into tilt and into a catatonic state when you ask them simple questions like, "Why do you think like that?"
Listen, we'll be here all night. I can just give you stories. I can just give you stories on Nigerian Uber drivers alone. And we'll be here all night. But like you said, this country has become a cornucopia, Cleo, of different types. Like you say, from different ethnicities and shades of blackness, different sexualities.
Right.
You're right. The pickings have become so plentiful when it comes to get people to get up and do the bidding of white power.
That's because the counter work has not been plentiful. I mean, I'm serious as a heart attack when I talk about the fact that we have to stop getting angry at black people for acting like African Americans. That's not going to get it. They're already traumatized. I mean, have you seen all these sisters with this blonde hair? Run around here trying to outdo Farrah Fawcett, who's been dead for a few years.
You're not gonna get me in trouble, Cleo.
Well, I'll take all the trouble. I'll take all of it. It's insane for black women to have blonde hair. I'm sorry. or black men.
Well,
not unless it's naturally textured. I can deal with that. But when it's straight and they throwing stuff back and about to choke themselves with that stuff, I have issues. Yeah, who do all that stuff he does quite well.
I can't wait to Bliss. Ooh, I can't wait. I can't wait to Bliss come back because I know she's gonna have some pushback on that. But anyway, and I'm not saying I don't agree with you, Cleo, either. I don't necessarily agree with the whole bonnet conversation, and I think that's maybe for another broadcast. But I think I have my thoughts on the whole bonnet thing. I think people are blowing that out of proportion. But one thing that Coleman did do, and we actually need to open up the broadcast for those who are viewing in the audience. If you want to join in the conversation, because we got a little something special for you as well. We're gonna go over the top 10 dumbest rebuttals against reparations. And this is not, and I'm gonna tell you something, all 10 of these rebuttals came from white media propaganda. You might hear black people repeating it, but all 10 of it came from white people. The first one, number 10, came from a lot of y'all friends who y'all be calling y'all granddaddy. Bernie Sanders, Bernard Sanders. They asked him about reparations. He said flat out no. And then he said it's because it's divisive. Number 10, it's divisive. Now,
what's crazy about that is that the divide is already here.
It already exists. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I was about to say the money is divisive. Hell.
It was also a comment that the Coleman is his name. He made in the video that said that the relationship between black people, it will become transactional, even though that's what it's always been with white.
Well, let me tell you something, Uwazi. Everybody's relationship with this government is transactional, except for black people.
That part.
Woo!
My on today.
And I'm gonna tell you, and Coleman, he said something, and the boy don't even know what he was saying. He was speaking a word.
Yeah.
And didn't even know it.
And didn't know. You didn't even know it.
That was number 10. Number 9, and I love when people come to me with this one at number 9, because I come from a movement where we were fighting worldwide white power. So black immigrants are excluded. That's number 9. And in this conversation, what's missing is that every black person on this planet has a reparations case from some European entity or power.
Yep.
If you are from Haiti, you got reparations cases coming to you from France, Britain, Spain, the US. You from Jamaica,
all of that.
Britain owes you money. And so on and so forth. So if you're gonna come into the context of US reparations, which this government owes the people who they enslave, you're going to come in and say, I'm against that because we ain't included. Guess what? You're being anti-black. You got to check that. And there are whole movements out here that fight for reparations on a holistic and global scale.
You are right. You are correct.
Slap me if I'm wrong.
You are not.
Cleo, did you have anything to say about that as well? I know you have some immigrant background as well, don't
you? Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I have issues with any black cluster who is trying to compartmentalize black people under the guise of we should get reparations and nobody else. I think that Africans worldwide should get reparations, and we should be simultaneously to what we're trying to do in the United States. We should also support and co-sign or motivate Africans all over the world to demand reparations.
All right. And yeah, we need to get on it, black people. This is a worldwide fight. This is a global issue of reparations. But you can't bring a case to Joseph Biden about Jamaica per se. You got to talk about what happened here. But so number 8, and this is probably y'all favorite. Africans sold Africans, and there were also black slave owners. Now,
see,
go ahead.
This show is. I wish we would have started with this list from the very beginning. See, I can't even talk. This one gets me so much. I wish we would have started from the very beginning with this one, because the unconscious anti-black angst and disdain Black people have is bolstered by that myth.
Yep.
And the dimensionality and nuance and context that that myth requires to actually repair it takes a little bit of time. But I'll just say this, that the two predominant monarchs that were involved in the slave trade, and they were outnumbered by a whole lot of other monarchs that were not involved in the slave trade, were seduced over time into getting involved. They did not see white folks across the street and say, hey, white folks, here's some Black people, 3 for sale. You want some? That's not how it went down. And white people, like they do now, set up shop in Africa to do trade and all kinds of stuff with a hidden agenda that the Africans do not know they have. And it's just, and you need to look up King Alfonso and his relationship to Portugal and Britain and get some information, folks, because it's not that simple. And I'll close by reiterating that most Africans, by a long shot, fought against slavery. However, nobody does diabolicalism and deception like the people who made the most money and who created the slave trade.
Now, in addition to that, I just want to encourage our viewers to check out Home Team History. Excuse me. Home Team History on YouTube. We have shared his videos as well on Melanated Solutions Media, and I may put this specific video up that talks about the downfall of Africa. And that brother goes in depth, and he knows his stuff. He provides very good research and facts behind what he says.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. And he tells that story quite eloquently. The issue of Black people owning slaves, there were some pockets of mixed race Black people in places like Louisiana, as well as Maryland, who were wealthy enough to own other Black people. And those Black people did not identify squarely as Black, many of them. In Louisiana, they were known as gens du couleur, meaning people of color. And of those overwhelmingly Black people who did own slaves, they owned their relatives because there were laws against actually freeing slaves. Come on, you had to save a white person's life, or you had to turn in another Black person who was planning to rebel in order to get your freedom. Or else, right? The only other way that somebody could free their loved one was to buy them. They would be listed as their slaves. So let's not let these people play mind games with us.
And let me add to that, if you don't mind,
together.
Let me add to that. Most Black people, though, who owned slaves were buying their relatives, and some of them were buying people so they could be free too. Many of them were. Also, a lot of Black people don't know, and it's never talked about enough, and Nat Turner's rebellion was like this. Free Blacks and enslaved Blacks came together to rebel against the system of slavery. That means that Black people who already were free were not happy with themselves being free, and there are other people not. So they joined Black people who were enslaved to fight against the whole system of slavery. See, a lot of us don't know that. The people that was back in the
same thing with Denmark Vesey too.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah,
the people with Denmark Vesey were half enslaved. So we know how to work together, and we have worked together. But the narrative of working together and loyalty to Black people constantly gets lost in this over-exaggerated myth about us.
Absolutely.
And the last thing is that we never hung, murdered, quartered, and burned each other alive. And people that quote unquote owned Black slaves who were Black did not cut the bellies of Black people and cut the baby out and stomp the baby's head. We didn't do that to each other. So let's be real clear.
Somebody that did do it to us.
And complaining about Black people owning Black people is like complaining about Black people owning a McDonald's restaurant. And what I mean by that is McDonald's restaurants is in the landscape. It's part of the culture, kind of like English. So people do what the English do because they were born into the circumstance. However, Black people did not treat Black people even across the free remotely enslaved situation like white people did. Let's be real clear.
So, number 7. What about poor white people? And there were white slaves.
What about them?
1, there were no white slaves in this country. White people voluntarily came here, some of them as indentured servants. None of them were enslaved, and none of them had their children following the condition of them. and in perpetuity, meaning their children and their children and their children. So it's a lie.
And
it's not true.
And none of them were breeded. None of them were set up to produce, have random sex between the men and women to produce products for white folks called human beings, or who were human beings. They weren't called human beings. And they were not lynched in droves because a white man had a bad day.
Right. So
like
number,
what happened to
6.
I'm finished. I'm finished.
Oh no, it's good, Cleo. Listen, we number 6. It was too long ago. There are no living slaves or slaveholders. Now that's what that's something Coleman alluded to as well. But Aetna Insurance is still around.
Chase Bank.
Chase Bank, CSX Railroad, this government is still around. And really, and slavery ended only a little bit over 150 years ago. So I'm gonna tell you something. I am but the I'm but the 4th generation born free on both sides of my family. The 4th generation. You're not gonna look at me and tell me it happened too long ago. I grew up eating the same foods as those people was eating.
Right.
And you may have heard the N-word once or twice in your life.
Come on.
And that's a direct result of Black dehumanization and enslavement that has not gone away in terms of its residual impact. Because I ain't got time to go back and forth with you N-words. That's not how I feel. I'm talking about there's a song on the radio or social media somewhere that says that. That's slavery today.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard it, Uwazi. You don't live in a
Yeah. I was gonna sing it, but no.
No, thank you. That's all right.
I didn't think.
So number 5, and this comes from James Claiborne. There's no way to calculate all that and how the cost and how to know how much to pay people and who all supposed to get it. James Claiborne, I'm sorry, but there was a person by the name of Dr. Claude Anderson and a few other scholars, people that maybe intelligence might go a little bit above yours, who have drawn these numbers up. And in addition to that, we know history. We know who the descendants are of the slaves. And furthermore, I think he knows too, but he's one of those people who white people have propped up to be a Black gatekeeper or a Black, they was calling him kingmaker to make him feel good, but in reality, he's just a Black gatekeeper or plantation gatekeeper. But that was his whole spiel. Number 4 is not every Black person wants reparations. And you can inbox me if you don't want your reparations. I'll let you know my
okay. Help somebody.
I'm still colonized at the bank. Sign it over to him. Do you want reparations, Uwazi?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How about you, Cleo?
Yes.
My.
Number 3, it would hurt the economy.
Okay, I tell you what.
White folks are talking about going to Mars and stuff. So, I mean, what y'all think?
Well, not only that, every year, up in the millions and millions and millions, the United States funds the residue of a foreign war that did not happen in this country at a place called Israel. Mm-hmm. So instead of funding a so-called Holocaust that happened someplace else, that was not even an American U.S. phenomena, why don't you fund the U.S. phenomena? That money can come over here. And that collective has enough resources to be self-contained.
Yep.
And there are statistical data that indicates that. So since y'all worried about
number 2.
Anyway, let me stop.
I'm not trying to rush you, Cleo, but I don't want to break up and have no issues, and we don't get to number 1. Number 2 is it will never happen, and that's just basic defeatism.
Yep.
That's
Reparations
what they said about
we never stop picking cotton.
Yep, and we'll never not be enslaved physically. They said that too. But the mental part is still an issue. now that I can talk now because Kashama is frozen.
It's frozen. I guess I'll read number one until he comes back. So number one is, it would take away the drive to succeed. Black people will spend it on Cadillacs, clothes, jewelry, and weaves. My issue with that statement is that white people use money for frivolous things. But however, I'm trying to move out of talking about blackness in comparison to whiteness. But frivolous things, you just said it. Funding a war that has nothing to do with the United States of America, funding all of these other different entities and different things. So it's just it shouldn't be anybody's business what black people decide to use the money for.
Well, not only that. From my perspective, the reparative work / reparations process should be a process that also provides opportunities for Black people to rebuild themselves, rebuild their self-concept, and to understand economics. And it should be a educational component to that, because despite the fact that there's some possibility that could happen, what somebody just said, which I think is a so what, is that no, we can create literacy, economic literacy, along as a parallel process along with these reparations. We can do work on Black self-esteem, Black self-concept. We can also get critical race theory in schools and teach Black people their history, so they can be more apt to invest. Yes, so they can be more apt to invest in themselves, with the money, and each other, like other groups do, and like we tried to do before they blowed up Black Wall Street and Rosewood, and we can go on and on and on. So we can create also self-defense classes for Black folks as part of this reparation package too. So the reparations package don't have to be linear. It can be a holistic package to make sure that Black people are self-contained, resulting from getting reparations. There's a cure and a solution to everything if we're thoughtful about it.
Absolutely. I think that speaks to actually what it looks like to reparations not only being material, but reparations also being psychic, psychological, social,
and cultural,
and cultural, and implementing those things, and having the resources to do so, and build institutions and build entities that speak to those needs.
And there's scientific data all day long that backs up the state of Black people, what we've gone through, what the residual current historical impact has been, and what we need to do to repair and rebuild ourselves, and what is lost as a result of over 200 years of domestication. There's proof to fill in the gaps on what to do with that money. So those are all the excuses, but we're just talking because the people that came up with that 10-point list are not rational and don't care. They just don't want Black people to get reparations.
You hit the nail on the head.
They don't want white people to have to do anything that's going to create equity, because they suffer a fear of mediocrity.
Yep.
If they're worried about being caught being mediocre.
Yep. And
they create all these lies and deceptions so that they are mediocre and normal human beings like everybody else, but mediocre in many instances compared to Black people. They don't want that fact to ever become clear to us. That's why you can't find a movie about a Black freedom fighter that won, like Dessalines and Toussaint Louverture.
Yeah.
Or the absolute, or what happened with Patrice Lumumba and what he was successful at before the United States and Europe murdered him.
Had him killed for what he was doing. Crazy. Yep. Well, I guess I will end the broadcast, since Kashama, that Wi-Fi not letting Kashama be great. But thank you for joining us for another broadcast of Melanated Solutions Media. This has been Reparations Cut the Check, a deeper look at Marion Barry. We hope that you join us next week for our next broadcast, which we will be disseminating to you very, very soon. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel, click like and subscribe, and share this video and have this discussion. Keep having this intentional dialogue with the people, because we surely enjoy you all chiming in. And make sure that for the next broadcast that you click the link so that you can join us in on all this great conversation, because we love to see you. We love to hear from you, all of the feedback. I'm loving these comments. Thank you all for joining us. Peace, love. Bye, brothers and sisters.
Good night.